Okay, it's Jim for the Monopoly Project. We're doing one of our floating book reviews here on early June. You can see it's pretty hot here now in Gilbert. It's around 105. We're on the Monopoly Project yacht. Every successful real estate mogul has a yacht, and this is ours. Unfortunately, it's the Bikini Days, Girls' Days off, so you just have me here on Bella Vista Lakes. Like I said, it's early June. It's kind of warm here. We have two books to review. Last month was a real busy month with business deals and personal things. All good. But so we're only down to two books, and both of them are on the same topic. And so I can show you the first book is Return of the God Hypothesis, which talks about why God is the best explanation for the universe as we now know it scientifically. The other book is Genesis. You can see my phone fell because I lost remember last time I broke my tripod, and now I'm still fixing it. It's super gluing as we speak. But I have this jury rigged up here on the boat. So the second book is Genesis and the Big Bang. And it purports to explain why the Bible says the world was created in 6 or 7 days plus around 5,700 years, whereas the current best scientific theories show that it's like 13.8 billion. So why don't we start with these? Let me turn away from the sun. It's pretty bright, like I said. We're coming near sunset. But I will start with the second book, Genesis and the Big Bang. First, like I said, the book was written, it's 224 pages, written in 1991, so it's like 30 years old. It's paperback. It was written by Gerald Schroeder, who is a physicist and also a Jewish theologian of sorts, self-mannered. In this book, according to our current scientific theories, the universe is 13.8 billion years. If you take the Big Bang Theory and work it backwards, it comes, work everything backwards that we know, it comes back to 13.8 billion years. Of course, the Bible says that God created the heavens and earth, and he did that in 6 days, and then on the sixth day he created man, us. 7th day he rested. So there's 7 days in Genesis. And then it also goes through the genealogy of starting with Adam and all his descendants. There's 14 generations from Adam to Abraham, and a lot of the people in the first 14 generations lived a lot longer than we do. So, and then it goes to Abraham, and then it's 14 generations from Abraham to Noah. Anyway, let me see if I wrote it down. Generation 14 plus 14 to Jesus Christ. And so if you add up all the years that he allocates to each of the lives, actually the generations, not the actual length of life of each man and woman, it comes out to like 5,700 years, which is, when you hear the strict creationist talk, they say the world is 5,700 years old. And so according, Schroeder's thesis is that what we learn from special relativity and general relativity is that time is not absolute, that different observers view different time spans, clocks running different time at different speeds. So it is indeed possible that what one observer would see as 13.7 billion years, another observer might see as 6 or 7 days. And of course, Schroeder is a Jewish and a theologian, and also he goes into a lot of the Hebrew words in the account of Genesis and explains what they really mean, and especially in terms of time. And he claims that the Jewish mystics and the Jewish rabbis had already decoded the whole Big Bang Theory story. So anyway, I did read a lot of the comments, and a lot of the people said that Schroeder doesn't know what he's talking about when he's talking about ancient Hebrew. So I'm not qualified to judge that. So I'll leave aside the arguments that he makes about the words and just stick to the science argument he makes about time and it being relative to the observer. And I think he's absolutely right. What I was somewhat disappointed in is that in this book, at least, he does not attempt to quantify the 6 or 7 days into 13.7 billion years, nor does he identify the observer who's observing this. Presumably it's God, but I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, because God is outside of time. And so I wish he would have quantified it. Again, when I read a lot of the comments, besides the criticism of his translation skills or knowledge of ancient Hebrew, some people did start talking about different time periods corresponding to different events in the creation story. And so I think maybe in a later book or a later work he might have quantified it. But in any case, I think it's real interesting. All of his comments are interesting about the Hebrew, about the creation story and its interpretation. And I think it's a very valid point that the 13.8 billion years is in the rocks and working backwards from the equations. So depending on the observer, that time may be different, and it may. And again, he goes into the subject, the discussion of what's a day, especially before the earth and the sun were created. God creates the heavens and earths on day one, but at that point there's no earth or no sun, so there's no such thing as a day. He goes into that and discusses it in terms of light and no light, order and no order, order versus chaos. So it's definitely worth reading. It's definitely worth reading. And like I said, I think there's a lot of truth there that we can take it literally, and we can also understand that doesn't necessarily mean that science contradicts the Genesis creation story. So that's the book number 1. Number 2 is a similar one, and this is by Stephen Meyer, and it's a Return of the God hypothesis. And basically his thesis is that our recent discoveries in science, and by recent he means 50 or 100 years, now point back to the existence of a creator, of intelligent design in effect, although he doesn't necessarily use those terms. But he argues this from a logical and scientific point of view. And he's also been in debates with the major atheists, both in book form back and forth, but also literally in debates on stage. And he starts the book with one of those where he was debating. I forget the guy's name. He's the atheist from ASU, but Lawrence Krauss. Anyway, so he goes into that. But basically his thesis is that the 3 things that we've discovered in the last 100 years, so as the Big Bang Theory does point back, if you take the equations and work them backwards, it goes back 13.8 billion years, at which point all space was in one point and all time was in one point. In fact, he goes into a lot of detail about time actually having a beginning, and some of the leading atheists trying to refute that argument because they don't want time to have a beginning, because that implies a creator. So that's the first thing, is the Big Bang Theory. The second thing is the fine-tuning of the universe. If you look at the equations of the universe, they're so incredibly fine-tuned in the sense that the numbers, which don't make any logical sense, are all just arbitrary numbers. Each one has to be almost perfect exactly where it is, or life wouldn't exist. And he gives lots of examples of that. There are other books that discuss that subject in and of itself. And so it's incredible. And then the third great scientific discovery is the information that's coded in DNA and RNA, we'll talk about that later, shows that there's no way that could have occurred by chance, and there's also no way that Darwin's theory of evolution can explain the evolution of different life forms, because basically 2 things is that the information that appears in almost instantaneously in the geological record is way too complicated to have occurred by chance, by just rearranging things. And the second one is, like we said, in the historical record, the fossil record, whole new forms of being come into life all out of nowhere, and there doesn't seem to be time for the theory of natural selection that Darwin and the Darwinists explain. So given all these three things, he uses a logical methodology. What is the best explanation of this phenomena that we observe, using Boolean logic and conditional probability, Bayes' theorem, surprisingly, but it's actually a really good book. And if you're interested in physics and biology and all those things, you can see you got the sun right behind me now, so I'm not sure. I can't see you, but you can see me. But anyway, he uses these. He goes into great detail in all of these arguments. And the other thing I found very interesting and entertaining is that he basically talks about each of the proponents of each of these theories, and he's got a little foot picture, headshot of each of the guys. And so it's kind of interesting to see who's talking and who's refuting him. And there's some people on the creationist side who actually think that God created everything and then he just let it go and it went automatically into what we see now. He refutes that theory in his argument. So in any case, like I said, if you're interested in physics especially, but also biology and DNA, there's a lot of interesting discussion of these various matters. So I definitely recommend both books. And so that's the floating book review for June. We will get back to you in July with hopefully a few new books. We've cleared off our book table. If you saw from our last what we're reading, we're down to 1 or 2 books left. So we're going to get back to it. Like I said, we've been busy. We had 3 birthdays, including my cousin Willie's 90th birthday. Jennifer, our daughter, Melissa, our daughter. Tiger came back from the Army basic training and School of Music. We had John's sister, Jaden, had her quinceanera a couple days ago, so we went to that. And so we've been real busy with a lot of personal things. And also a lot of business things. We did buy the Gold Spot building. I think I mentioned that earlier at the end of April, and so we're still trying to straighten out all the books and get everything under control and solve some issues there. In the meantime, just last week, again with John in Bakersfield, we were looking at this 36-bed assisted living facility for the last 9 months, and it kept falling through our hands, and finally it came back on the market and we made an offer, and I think they accepted it. I haven't seen the countersigned version that we sent on Saturday, yesterday. So we're waiting for that, and if that deal starts, then we'll be very busy in escrow with due diligence and figuring out what's really there and what's not. So we're looking forward to a really busy summer. And also we started on the Power Road building that we bought in December. We moved out one tenant, the gym, CrossFit gym, and we're moving in a beer house, a tap room 120, which we actually bought in a small, very small investment, just for the fun of it. But they have taken over the space as of the 1st, and they are going to put the bar together, and it'll be open hopefully in 45 days, and hopefully even less than that. They have 45 days to finish, and so we'll be looking forward to that. So we've been real busy here at the Monopoly Project, and we haven't ignored the properties. The 3 properties we have, they're doing really well. Obviously prices are going up. You can see the monthly statuses, they're up, and so we're continuing to follow them, and Jeff and I are strategizing to try and figure out what our next step is going to be. Especially should we sell Valencia, because as you remember, we bought it 3 years ago, and we bought it for $200, and it's probably worth over $400, and we only have $150, I think, loan on it. So there's like pretty much over $200K in equity, and so the question is do we want to take that out and do something different with it? How do we redeploy that money to be, especially in this new market, interest rates are up. We managed to hit the sweet spot in borrowing all this money and buying these 2 new buildings, and so I got to slow down so I don't run over the mother duck and her babies. So we're we managed to, with the help of God, we managed to hit the sweet spot in the interest rates. Commercial interest rates now are over 5%. We started at 3.25. Most of our money is at 3.25%. We got, the last one was 3.9. So our effective rate on all the buildings is way less than 4. So we did real good there. Thanks be to God. In any case, this is Jim for the Monopoly Project. We're on the Val Vista Monopoly Project yacht, and we will catch you next time in the next floating book review. Thank you.